Hey everybody, this is Maxine Taylor and welcome to this edition of my Trumpology report. So many of you have thanked me for doing these reports and I'm trying to be of public service with them, and I'm so glad that so many of you are enjoying them. Now, let's talk about what's going on in Trump's chart in July and in the United States chart in July as well. Before I hop in there, though, let me mention that we are in the calm before the storm, so to speak. Why do I say that? Because as many of you know, we have 2 eclipses in August, and they are powerful. So we are preparing now for those eclipses. Keep in mind that the February eclipses, which I've described it in great length on various of my videos, are still in effect until the August eclipses come along. And some people use more than the short period of time to see the effects of an eclipse. I keep it short because we have so many that come along. I just want to stick with the most current one. And the way I look at it is we feel the effects of an eclipse until the next pair come along. However, the eclipses are strongest 3 to 4 months after they occur. Well, if you look back at May and June, you'll see that everything broke loose during that period of time. And now we are preparing for the August eclipses, one of which I've already previewed for Trump. It's on his ascendant, very powerful eclipse indicating a new life. How that will manifest, we have no idea. So there's much more than that going on. So let me now start with Trump's chart. And excuse me for wobbling the picture right now. I want to put his chart up front here. Okay. I think I'm going to need my reading glasses to get some of this clear. All right. Keep in mind that the previous eclipses, the February eclipses, are in effect. And Mars, these are not eclipses, but I'm just going to point to it in Trump's chart. The February 10th eclipse set on his Mars and ascendant. Mars is the fighter. The ascendant is the physical body. It's the most personal point in the chart. And so this set up behind the scenes fighting that propelled Trump forward. The second eclipse on February 27th was in his 7th house of partnership, of negotiations, of relationships, etc. Okay, that's what's set up now. Let's go over what will be happening. Here we go. Starting with the sun. The sun is going to be sitting in Trump's 11th house of friends and group activities. Well, the biggest group he's dealing with is Congress. And so here's the sun sitting on his Saturn, which is responsibility and restriction, and taking charge, of course. However, wherever Saturn is in the chart, that's where you can feel held down and back. However, he has friends in Congress because Venus is triggered as well. So you might say he's solidifying his friendships. That's entirely possible. And there may still be some restrictions going on. The sun will also enter his 12th house of behind the scenes activities. And this is where the activity, this house deals with hidden enemies. It deals with things that we do not see, that we do not know, and that we may never know. And so that's what's kicking into place this month. Now, Venus, which is beauty and love, and it's the lesser benefic, it brings blessings, is sitting right here in Trump's 10th house of his public image, blessing his public image. And so he's looking good. The sun is on his Venus is on his Uranus, and he's having a ball being rebellious. Venus is what you love, and so he's being rebellious. It's on his North Node, so his public image is triggered. It's blessed. It really is. And then it sits on his Sun, and he feels good about his public image. Now this is, remember, this chart that I'm describing is his chart. It's not your chart or my chart. Each chart is going to be different. So his public image is enhanced. However, his behind the scenes activities, infighting that we don't necessarily see, that's triggered too. Okay, now let's talk about Mercury. Mercury is our conscious mind. This is slipping off, so let me get organized here. Or I should say, let me try to get organized here. Mercury, what we think about and talk about. Mercury is sitting in his 11th house of Congress and friends, and he's talking to people who might help him, Venus, or might be restrictive, Saturn, or might take command and help him that way. But there's lots of activity with Congress. And then, of course, Mercury moves into the 12th house. It sits on his Pluto. Pluto is the planet of control. And so he is telling everybody, this is how it's going to be. Mercury sits on his Mars, and it fires him up by the end of the month. Excuse me. I have the dates written down. Here we go. Okay. Bear with me, guys. Okay. Mercury sits on Pluto on July 14th, mid-July. And that means he's reshuffling the control structure. He's talking to people behind the scenes from a position of control. And Mercury sits on Mars on the 22nd of July. So there's lots of infighting, behind the scenes fighting, getting things going. And then it crosses his ascendant, and we will hear, he will tell us, he will tweet exactly what he wants us to hear. The good news is he pretty much tells it like it is about what's going on with him. That's one of them. Excuse me. Now, let's talk about the new moon and the full moon, because these are very important. The full moon on the 9th sits on his vertex. The vertex is our karmic role in life. It's in his 5th house of fun and games. And so this is the house of enjoyment. So I'm thinking, okay, Mar-a-Lago, more golf, but it's more than that. The 5th house deals with children. And this can trigger lots of activity with his children. This includes his son-in-law. This eclipse is quincunx his 10th house planets. And so he's adjusting his public image, his whole public image, as a result of this full moon in order to enjoy himself more, or in order to handle all 5th house matters, which deals with fun, it deals with sports, it deals with children, it deals with gambling. Did I mention fun more than twice? Because that's exactly what it is. Then the new moon on the 23rd sits on his Venus. Venus in his 11th house of friends and group activities, which could easily be Congress, naturally, indicates wherever the new moon is, this is where things start moving forward. Sitting on Venus, Venus rules his midheaven of his public image. There are friends of his who will help his public image, be they in Congress or just be they friends who contribute money. And so we've got the full moon that brings all of his speculation and enjoyment and children to light. However, there's a little more that I want to share with you on what's going on with Trump. Mars. Wherever Mars is, that's what we throw ourselves into. That's what we fight with. That's what we fight for. And in this case, Mars, planet of gunfire, planet of action, sits in his 11th house of Congress. So there can be fighting. there can be getting directly to the point. So you can see the 11th house is very important for him this month. Mars on his Saturn means that he can be fighting with authority figures. Mars on his Venus can be a lot of excitement and passion as relates to the friends that he has in Congress or the friends in general that he has. And we'll be seeing this Mars on Saturn by July 10th. Mars on Venus, which is excitement and passion and fun, by the 13th. And then after that, it enters the 12th house. Now remember, the 12th house is behind the scenes activities. It's our hidden enemies. And this is where the fighting will be, behind the scenes, over hidden enemies, perhaps, more than likely. But it deals with hidden enemies, and it's hidden, period. Now, in addition to these aspects, Trump is having a Jupiter return this month. Jupiter is the great benefic. It rules money. It rules blessings. It is whatever it touches, it blesses. When we have a Jupiter return, we are optimistic. It is truly a time of blessings. Trump's natal Jupiter is in his second house of money. And so July and August, he'll be creating more money for himself. Jupiter's been retrograde. It's no longer retrograde. And this is the time that he gets the money that he expected to get. You might say, well, where does that money come from? I don't know. I have no idea. But that's what's going on. Now, Saturn is still sitting on his moon south node. Saturn is the great teacher. It can be restrictive. It can teach us reality. With his moon in the 4th house and his south node in the 4th house, this is home, family, and real estate issues. And so there's much going on dealing with home and family and all emotional issues, because that's the moon as well. I don't know if you noticed, but on the full moon this past month that fell on his moon south node, that's when Melania and Barron moved into the White House. This can create a problem on a larger scale, dealing with real estate while Saturn is there. And remember, in my previous video, I showed you that Saturn is on Comey's sun, which empowers him. Saturn on your moon and south node are not a positive thing necessarily. It's a time of paying the piper, facing home, family, real estate, all those issues that provide us with emotional security. You have to face them head on, and that's what Saturn is forcing Trump to do. Okay, that's Trump. Now, let's look at the United States chart. I've got charts all over the place, as you can imagine. Alrighty. So, the United States chart. Very, very interesting what's going on in the U.S. chart. Keep in mind that the previous eclipses are still active, the February eclipses. The one that fell, this is not an eclipse chart, but it fell in the 4th house. It opposed the president in the 10th house, the moon in the 10th house. And unfortunately, what this does is it triggers difficulty for the person in authority, and Trump has been having his share of it. Then the second eclipse in February was in the 10th house of the presidency, and it squared the ascendant. It did some other beautiful things. It trined the Venus, Jupiter, Sun in our 2nd house, but it upset the attitude of the public. All right, so that's what's going on now with the eclipses. Let's talk about the quick transits. I'll start with the Sun. Here we go. First of all, on July 4th, we have our birthday. And so we have a solar return. And the solar return, I haven't done the solar return for our country at this point. I'm just doing the transits. The solar return can be up to 2 days before the birthday to 2 days after the birthday. And this is when you as a person come alive, when you have your solar return. Have you noticed that on some birthdays, you have a celebration the day before your birthday, and then on your birthday, not all that much happens, and it's sort of anticlimactic? That's because your solar return was the day before. So it helps to know when your solar return is, and that's when you celebrate your birthday. So in our country, of course, in the United States, it's on July 4th. Now, the sun also sits in our third house. And the sun and Venus and Mercury all sit in our third house during July. Now, I'm going to just read to you what the third house in a mundane chart rules. So it rules a lot. Oh, news reporters. We can stop there, can't we? Our reporters have really been doing a bang-up job staying on top of what's going on, sharing it with us, asking questions. So the third house deals with communication, news reporters, news, mail, public opinion, traffic, travel, not long distance travel, but short travel, books and newspapers, neighborhoods, schools, teachers, and public transportation. All this is being activated in July. And as I go through the rest of the charts, you'll see why I'm emphasizing our reporters, as well as travel, as well as just self-expression of all types. Okay, this is the first chart, the sun. The second chart, Venus, the great benefic, lesser benefic, excuse me, Jupiter is the greater benefic. Venus is in our 12th house, and that deals with all behind the scenes activities, bribery, hidden enemies, hospitals, prisons, charitable institutions, privacy, secrecy. It has been shedding a light on that. It's crossing our ascendant. And so the attitude of the public, and that's what the first house is in a mundane chart. Our attitude, the political mood of the people, and public health, it blossoms. However, Venus sits on both Uranus and Mars, and so we're very happy to be explosive this month. Happy Venus. Uranus, explosion. Mars, very direct, very, very much direct. And Venus adds a loving tone to it. So rather than being overt rebellion, it has a happier note, a more pleasant note. So this would be because the public attitude has improved, and there are reasons for it, of course, which we'll find out. Now, Mercury. We have a Mercury return. Mercury returns to its own place in our third house. Mercury is the planet of communication, correspondence, transportation, our mouth and our minds. It deals with reporters and communication. That's the second time it's triggered. And then it moves into our fourth house of real estate, land, weather, the Democrats, crops, mines, farmers, builders, and seniors. Very, very interesting. All that will be talked about. In addition, Mars, the fighter, sits on our Mercury North Node. This is communication. Mercury is communication. It's in the third house of communication. And the North Node is the area, wherever the North Node is our area of greatest fulfillment. And so with Mars, the fighter, triggering this, we are going to hear a great deal from our news reporters. Now you might say, well, we already do. I'd say we're gonna hear a great deal more. In addition, the new moon on the 23rd is going to open things up for us. There's even more communication, more expression. And so some of the information that the United States, that the populace has wanted to know, we will know. Before that, though, we have a full moon, and it falls on our north node in the 8th house. Now, I don't usually, excuse me, I mean the part of fortune. I was thinking of the north node over here. The part of fortune, I use the vertex rather than the part of fortune, but because the full moon falls right smack dab on it, I thought I would include it. And let me tell you what else is triggered. With the full moon triggering the 8th house, which deals with taxes, taxes, debts, secrets, death. This full moon on the 9th can open things up that have been hidden. It can also help with tax reform, whether directly or indirectly. So first we'll have the full moon, but then of course we'll have the new moon. And so the secrets come to light, and then they're talked about, they're shared. This is what's going to be going on in Trump's chart and the United States chart. I've got 6 charts sitting here. There's a lot to look at. I've just shared the tip of the iceberg with you. This is not the entire picture, but it's enough so that you're not totally overwhelmed. Those of you who don't study astrology, this can be very overwhelming. I hope this is helpful. I hope you will join me in August, because that is when the next 2 eclipses are going to occur. Remember, we feel the effects of an eclipse about a week before it occurs. We feel it till the next pair of eclipses come along, and the eclipses after August the first one is January 31st. So the August eclipses are going to be very important. They will be at their peak November and December. And if you'll recall in my video, Will Trump Be Impeached? I talked about the 2 times that Trump could leave office. It doesn't mean impeachment, and it doesn't mean he's going to leave. But these are exit points for him, should he choose to take advantage of them. If you haven't watched that video, you might want to. Anyhow, thank you so much. I will be back next month. In the meantime, may the stars shine brightly on you and yours. May the stars shine brightly on our world. And may they shine brightly on the United States of America.